pretty much, well, your quarterback was almost perfect in the second half. Offense was very different first, second half to first half. What was the difference in your opinion?
Combination of things. I think certainly, got better play calls in there, gave him some opportunities to make some big plays. I thought execution was cleaner. I thought the front five did a great job really all day of handling those guys. So just started clicking, started getting things going at the right time. Guys were making big plays, so it was exciting to see.
How important was that in the second half that even in the first half there was some movement of the ball, but there were those negative plays that set things back? That was virtually, I think, one play for negative yardage in the entire second half.
Critical. That's certainly what allows us to get in the end zone. As you said, we were moving the ball well in the first half, but just couldn't find a way to execute when we got down in there tight to get 7 every time, and obviously the turnover going into that. But I thought those guys did a really nice job in the second half of minimizing those. Certainly play calls have a big thing to do with that as well, but I was really pleased with that second half performance.
I know you've talked many times about the progress Kyler's made and learning things and all that stuff. What difference can it make to him, though, to have a full offseason of working with you and understanding all this stuff and going through some of this on a lesser scale in OTAs and stuff like that? What can that mean to the team and his game?
I think it's big. I think it's big for our relationship, for his understanding of the offense, for his relationship with his teammates, for just getting a feel for how guys come out of breaks and where they're going to be in tough situations and making sure that on-the-field communication is not always going to be verbal and kind of have an understanding of body language and some of that stuff I think is huge. So certainly going to be a big thing as we move into the offseason.
With someone like Michael Wilson, the miscommunication on that the pick six, for a rookie who hasn't had a full season with his quarterback, what do you say after a moment like that to him?
It's easy. I mean, he's the type of guy that moves on quickly. Like, hey, we make mistakes. He made a mistake. I make mistakes. Like, that's on me as much as on anyone. Anytime we do something like that on offense, that falls on coaches first. So, just, hey, move on. We got a big game to play. We're very much in this game. We got a lot of time left. Like, let's go play the next play and not worry about it. And I think him and I really think that whole offense did a great job of doing that and not, flushing it and worrying about the next play.
And Drew, in terms of where you're at right now with a week to go in the regular season, are you where you thought you'd be, or where are you in terms of where you were hoping to be in terms of?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping to be undefeated, but that'll be true every year. No, I think it's a good question. I think it's a hard question. So much of what we do is day to day, and I think that has to be our mindset all the time. I think at some point in the offseason there might be time to reflect, but I don't think at any point in training camp or in the offseason I was like, this is where I want to be in December, or this is where I want to be in September. It's always hey, how do we get better today? What do I need to do as a coach to make sure I'm putting these guys in the best position? What do we need to do as an offense to make sure we're prepared for the next day, for the next practice, for the next game? And you really have to stick to that mindset if you're going to reach your potential. I really do believe that.
Are there things that you still have in the arsenal that you're like, I can't wait to implement this stuff next year or in the off season or those kind of things?
That certainly, I don't think does cross my mind strictly because the roster in the NFL, injuries in the NFL, you just never know where you're going to be, who you're going to be playing against, and how you want to go do that. So, no, I think we anytime we go into a game, we're going to do everything we can to win that game at all cost. Scheme and personnel, obviously play into that. So I don't feel like there's anything, hey, we've been holding this back or not doing that.
What do you think is the potential of the 1-2 punch in James Conner and Michael Carter?
Yeah, I certainly was really pleased with the way those guys played on Sunday and really pleased with the way that room has played the entire year. I think just what they bring to the offense, certainly our ability to run the ball has a lot to do with the other 10 guys on the field as well. But kind of the energy, the effort, the ability physically that you saw throughout the season and kind of on display there on Sunday was dynamic, and I think it makes it hard on the defense.
Jonathan said yesterday he didn't know how Kyler was going to react because he hadn't been with him before in terms of not practicing for a couple of days. What was your feeling on that as the week progressed and not having him for those 2 days? And then what were your thoughts in terms of how he handled it? And obviously he played almost as good as he could on Sunday.
Yeah, I think certainly, the first time you watch a guy, hey, he's going to miss Wednesday or Thursday potentially because of the sickness. It's always like, oh, well, haven't been through this, and we got to make sure we do everything in our power to make sure that he's ready. I thought Israel did a great job, and Kyler did a great job of, hey, can you jump on Zoom for an hour so we can go through the base game plan, watch a little tape? I know you're not feeling well and you can't come in the building, but can we get you on, just watch a little tape, make sure you know the reads, make sure you know the footwork on Wednesday, similar on Thursday, so that it felt like even though maybe he didn't get the physical reps, he did have the mental reps and the conversations about what we're thinking, what he's seeing, how those things go together. So it was great to see kind of that effort and involvement come to fruition on Sunday with the performance.
And he mentioned after the game how he felt in the second half things really got in a groove and hyper-focused in detail. Do you think that he maybe, because of the situation last week was even more, having more attention to detail and focus than normal? Not to say that he's not normally like that.
You'd have to ask him that. I mean, I know that's kind of an out, but it's hard to I noticed very little difference in his demeanor, the way he approached the game, the way he honestly went through the week, and kind of conversations that we had in person Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You wouldn't have known he didn't practice from that standpoint.
With the way you guys had the wide receiver room set up coming into the year and kind of how you had it, the depth chart, and everybody's role, has Greg Dortch produced more than you thought he might be capable of doing?
That's a tough question. I think I've been really pleased with just kind of the way he jumped in and didn't miss a beat. I think you've seen that over the last couple of weeks. He's always ready when his number's called, regardless of whether he's in the starting lineup on Wednesday or he happens to be in it midway through the game on Sunday. He jumps right in there. I think he plays at a really high level. You see what he can do with the ball in his hand, not only as a returner, but some of the run after catch that he's made the last couple of weeks has certainly been explosive for our offense. So really pleased with that, and certainly need to want him to continue to grow in that role.
Has there been anything that you've learned over this past season, as first year as a coordinator, and then also what you can take from that going forward into next year? Yeah,
you try to learn from everything you do, whether it's the week-to-week process with the staff in terms of how we put the game plan together, how we operate on the practice field, how we communicate on game day, how we interact with the players. I think every single day that I've been on this job, I've been able to learn something that's hopefully made me a better coach, a better teammate, a better person. Lean heavily on the guys that are around me, both players and coaches, in terms of making sure I'm asking them those questions. Hey, is there something you feel like we could do better or communicate better, or is there something I'm missing? And I think I've gotten great feedback from the players and coaches on that, and certainly tried to take that to heart and make sure that I'm doing the best to be the best I can for this organization.
You hear Kyler in a press conference talk about a lot of credit to Drew with the play calls. I mean, what's going through your mind when he's saying?
I certainly appreciate that. I think I would say probably the opposite sentiment. The plays are the plays. It's the players that make them work, and I think those guys have done a really nice job lately of going out and making plays and putting us in position to win games. And certainly he's a huge part of that.
I know there's a week left, but what's your big picture evaluation of Kyler in the last 7 weeks, and separately, big picture evaluation of this offense and where it is, and where it was when he got there?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. I mean, something we've hit on, I think, week to week over the last, the course of the season. And I think he's done a really nice job. I know we've spoken at length about kind of how he's handled things and coming off the injury and playing late in the season, and been really pleased with that. I think, as we all know, there's things we need to grow on, things he needs to grow on. So I think that's going to be the focus. Kind of like we talk about every week, and now just putting it in the big picture. It's like, hey, here's what we did well, here's what you did well, here's what I did well. And here's where you, me, and all of us need to improve to get where we want to go next season. I don't think that mindset's going to change very much. So happy with where it is, but certainly, we have a long way to go as well.
Offensively, does this season almost feel like two halves, like before Kyler and after Kyler?
It honestly seems like it's gone. Every year you feel this way. Like week one seems like it was like 6 seasons ago and like 8 years ago. Like you barely remember what happened. Like people are bringing up events from those, and it's like, wow, that seems like a different season, a different year. So I wouldn't put it in those terms. I've been, to me, it's the Arizona Cardinals offense of the 2023 season. I think every year you go through the NFL, you take ups, downs, twists and turns, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Have you enjoyed the grind as a coordinator?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. This has been a great year. Certainly just the people I've been able to be around, kind of what we've been able to do, who I've been able to work with. It's really been, without trying to get too emotional here, it's been pretty special for me.
It's very different, right?
Yes, it certainly is.
With the way the first 3 possessions went, what was the level of confidence of you and the entire offense when you got the ball there with the final one, needing a field goal to tie, but a touchdown to potentially win?
Yeah, very confident. I think that's one of the biggest messages I've said in that room is my attitude as a coordinator, and I expect them as players, is no matter who we're playing, no matter what the circumstances is, when we touch the ball, we should expect to score a touchdown at all times, every single time. And I think those guys have really embraced that, so I don't think that was any different when we took the game, took the ball in the first series of the game, or any different when we took it with 2:30 left. I think to say, hey, here are the circumstances, here's how we're going to go do it, and now we got to go execute.
Is that how it felt in the second half?
Say it again?
Is that how it felt in the second half?
Absolutely. And honestly, I feel that way every single time we start a drive. And I really try to instill that in the players. Hey, if we do our job and I call the right plays, we're scoring touchdowns. Like that's got to be our mindset.
You talked about Greg, but what's that thought when he breaks that tackle and all of a sudden now you're really in position to win it, where who knows if you know, if he hadn't made those extra yards.
Absolutely, that was a big play. I mean, certainly breaking the tackle, staying in bounds, creating that. You know, my first reaction was like, let's go score. Like, he's going to score. We're good. And then quickly, like probably halfway through his run, I'm like, all right, I need a play call for whatever's like, are we in the 15? Are we at the 10? Are we at the 5? Because certainly that changes the dynamic of time left on the clock, timeouts, what you need to do to go score. But I think our mindset always in a 3-point game is, hey, we got to go win the game. You know, we're not playing for a field goal. We're playing to win the football game.
Thanks, Coach. What was your phone like after the game, if we might ask? What sort of feedback did you get?
Yeah, there's a lot of people, congratulating you on the win. That happens a lot. I feel like usually when you win, you get a lot of texts. When you lose, there's 2 people that text you. It's your wife and your mom. That stays consistent. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, a lot of people usually text you when they win. It's cool. Sam had a good point. He said, I try to make a very intentful decision to text other coaches that are my buddies when they lose, because hey, keep pushing, whatever. So I thought that was kind of cool,
It was the next game, and when the whistle blew, you guys were going to be, zoned in on the game. When you're down on the field and you are hearing the fans boo Philly and calling timeout, not being ready, whatever it might be, are you at least internally, a little prideful of like, okay, like this is because of what we're doing and how we're playing?
No, I can't say that I'm prideful with boos happening. I think, if the flow of the game was going good for us, you feel good about that. And times where we were kind of up against it, they were moving the ball, you don't feel as good. I don't think I really noticed the boos per se, the fans and stuff. So yeah, it's more flow of the game for me that kind of gets me feeling a certain way, not the fans.
How looped in were you on the onside kick, like knowing, okay, if this doesn't work, we're going to be defending a short field and that kind of stuff and decision-making? Or
Yeah.
It just happened and...
No, JG does a really good job communicating that. I thought I did a good job of acting like I wasn't really paying attention to the kick. Good act job by me. But yeah, I was very, very aware of, hey, if you got to just defend a short field here, time left in the game, how do we want to play that? JG does a really good job of going back and forth between all the lines. So yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
I think he held him to like 251 yards. How impressive do you feel that it is considering how good offensively they came?
Yeah, yards isn't the thing you're going to have. Let's keep you win the game. So obviously you walk away from that saying, man, we did a good job as a team doing what we need to do to win the game. The offense did a great job of controlling the clock and keeping us out of the field. That was a very low amount of plays that we had to defend, which is a really good thing. You want your offense out there, you want the defense on the bench. So, it was good, good complimentary football. I appreciate the offense for doing a good job. But yeah, I mean, the score is ultimately what you're looking at, but that's a really good offense, and was excited that we were able to go in the really tough crowd, tough environment with a playoff team that's a Super Bowl contender and come away with a win.
I know going into this one, kind of going off of Danny's question about this being just another game, but after the game, a lot of the guys were saying that there was a little extra oomph in a sense because of you and JG and a lot of the other guys going back. Now that that game's out the way and the season's kind of coming to a close, to have that sort of support from the guys in the locker room for you specifically and personally, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I appreciate that they felt that way. Ultimately, though, it was about us going in there and getting a win as a team. It had nothing to do with JG or myself. But that support, it does mean a lot. You ultimately do this job to make the players better, to help you win as a team. And I feel like if they feel that, if I feel like it's that kind of support, that they feel like myself, the rest of the coaching staff is doing a good job of putting them in positions, making them better players, and getting this thing on the right track to win games.
What went into the decision to not have a Cam Thomas active for the game?
There's a lot of factors that play into that. Ultimately, you got to ask JG about the ultimate final roster decisions on game day, but it's a lot of factors that play into it as far as roles on defense, what you need to do on defense for the game, special teams, everything like that. So that's something that week to week can vary with every position.
As you get to the point of having to evaluate the season with position groups like the defensive line, where you really wanted to have a rotation, you had a lot of injuries. You know, there were games where you didn't have Buda and JT on the field together. How comprehensive can you really look at this defense when it felt like it was hard to have consecutive weeks of really being healthy and maybe having the game plan that you were envisioning at the start of the year because you were dealing with so many injuries?
I'm not quite there yet. I'm focused on Seattle, but you know, when I do reflect back on that, that is the NFL. You know, you never have the same guys up for a game week to week. You know, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be changing, you know, who's active, who's inactive. So that's part of being adaptable. You have to be able to know, hey, I want to get to this with these guys, and you know, what's your backup plan? What's your shoe plan? Right, as we've talked about in here. You have to be able to be flexible with your game planning on a week-to-week basis with the opponent you're playing and who you have available as well. So I would say it's standard to this league, and you better get used to it because it's part of it. Every team goes through it.
Can you put in perspective how hard of a move it was for Zaven to go from inside to outside of this level of football?
Yeah, how hard of a move it was, you know, I would say anytime you move positions, there's just going to be a little bit of a transition process to it. But it wasn't difficult for him on a lot of different levels. He did a lot of that stuff in college. He has the skill set to do it, and his intelligence is through the roof. So for him, I would say it's a smooth transition. It's a matter of mastering all the techniques and the different requirements of that position as time goes. And like I've said, we actually have him do probably above and beyond what that the standard, you know, job requirement for that position of moving him all over the place, asking him to do things in coverage and rush that you wouldn't normally ask that position to do. So he's ascending with his game in every element, the run game, pass rush, dropping into coverage. And, you know, it was a looking back, I'm really glad we did it because it was a huge benefit for us to have him in that spot.
Did you know when you got here and started evaluating the roster that that's something you wanted to do, or what was the process that led up to that?
Yeah, watching the tape from previous years, but also obviously I was very familiar with Zaven from coming out the year he came out, and I had an idea in my head, but ultimately it was a decision as a full staff. JG, Monty, everybody is like that was looped in on it, and Zaven, we talked to Zaven about it and everything like that. So it wasn't just like I was fixed in my mind that I wanted to do that or I stumbled into it. It was something that I knew was a possibility, and we kind of made it as a collective organization unit.
Last question. How long did it take for him to kind of get into that? I guess how far into the season did you realize, like, okay, this guy has it? Was it immediately? Was it a few weeks?
Yeah, it was immediately. I knew it. Yeah, yeah, it was immediate. You could see it on the practice field, OTAs.
You settled in as a coordinator this year, first time doing it. How's it been? It's been great. It's been smooth, and I would thank my staff and the players for that. I think ultimately what can make things go easier. I shouldn't say it's easy because this job in this league is difficult, but when you have really good players, when you have players with high football character, when you have really good leaders, when you have a staff that's highly intelligent but flexible and wants to keep alignment, it makes things just all about ball. And so I can't say I was ever really distracted from the job description, which is, put the defense in the best position to win games. And I was able to focus on that for the entire season because of the people around me. So, I had a blast, obviously, in year one, but it was due to the people around me, I would say. It's a grind, right? Very different than being a position coach.
Everybody is grinded in their position coaches, quality control coaches. It's different, it's your day-to-day is different. Your routine is a little bit different. How you have to think about the game is slightly different, but I can say being under JG for the previous couple of years really helped me get ready for that role.
Somewhat overlooked was in everything that happened was that you guys stopped them on one of their push plays. And so what was your reaction to that, even though, of course, they then made it on fourth down?
My reaction was, dang it, that was only third down, not fourth down. Here we go again. Yeah, it's a tough play to defend. They're really good at it. I thought our guys did a really good job. You know, there was reps of that. They had a couple of them, obviously, where you look, you're like, oh, that's a really good job by the D-line right there. Hey, outside linebacker, great job. And they're still able to get it. There's very little room for error. So, but I was happy with how our guys battled on all of those plays, and that one was obviously the best one because it at least got it to fourth down. We had another shot at it, you know. Oh, it's huge, you know. They do a great job of it. It really is like a rugby scrum, and you know our D-line did a good job of getting low, and you know there's a lot of details to it beyond pad level, but that's a huge critical piece that kind of starts it off with the line of scrimmage.
How valuable is he to this defense, and where is he?
Highly valuable, very highly valuable, on a lot of different levels. Leadership, obviously, that's the kind of the obvious one that I think you can even see from an outsider perspective, but we ask him to do a lot of things, and he does it with ease. He can play down in the box, he can blitz, he can play deep zones, he can play man on the slot. When you have a guy with versatility like that also plays like a missile and hits the ball, like you're in good hands, you know. Yeah, phenomenal player.
What kind of resources have you been for the younger guys, especially kind of a role model? Like they're seeing
Yes.
him play and do everything.
Well, he does a great job as a leader from the perspective of, okay, he sets the standard, he is the role model. He's gonna, you know, help guys along and make sure that they're getting better in their games along with himself. But the accountability with him, to me, really pops out. He holds everyone to a standard, and he holds them accountable, players, coaches, everybody. And I think that's really where his leadership excels, is that accountability piece, because he holds himself to a very high standards, and he lives it. I don't think there was a day since we started that he was not who you think he is. He shows up every single day as Buda Baker, and he demands that from everyone else, and I think that's why he is who he is.
Second time through with the Seahawks, has anything changed with them? Personnel-wise, scheme-wise, anything different?
No, I mean, they're running the same offense. They've had some injuries along the way. You know, Gino was out for a couple games, but very similar offense. You know, good offense, a lot of good skill players. They're able to run the ball. The back is phenomenal. He's one of the best runners, I think, in this league. His ability to make his patient. He can make cuts on a dime, and then like when it's time to go, he is going to run through you. So you got to do a good job with keeping a cup on him, getting around his hamstring, tackling him, because he can create explosives in the run game. So very similar offense from the first time around. Obviously, everyone changes, and you know there's some subtlety differences, but yeah, overall pretty similar.
I think we saw too much of the rookie running back the last time. This time, I mean, you've probably seen more on him. Is he kind of a change of pace guy, or does he kind of do similar things as Walker?
Yeah. Yeah, no, the thing that I think that they both do really well is make cuts. Like, you cannot take bad tracks on these guys, otherwise they're going to make you pay across your face and lead to explosive plays. So, you know, anytime you got two backs that can run the ball, it keeps them fresh, keeps them in there. It's not a overly different style of runner per se, but they are different runners, you know. So there's always a change of pace to that in that sense, but. Yeah, both really good runners with the ball, I would say, and they're both guys that can create explosives if you don't take good angles.
What are you seeing out of Owen as he continues to get more defensive snaps?
Yeah, Owen probably had his best game. I thought his just comfort level with execution was there, to where you didn't see him making any mistakes, really. You didn't see him playing slow, because obviously Owen's got great physical tools, but when you're having to think and you don't know, it can slow you down a little bit, and that didn't show up at all in this game, and that was his highest number of snaps. So very pleased with where he was, or where he, you know, got to that previous game. I think it was a jump, and I think he's going to continue to make a jump. He's going to keep working. He's got things he knows he wants to take his game to the next level, but I was pleased with that, and I'm excited to see where he's going to go here this next week.
How much did you guys talk ahead of time about that late game onside kick situation? How much came up later in terms of what Jonathan was looking for, which was essentially to shorten the field for them and potentially give you guys more time on the clock?
Yeah, I would say that when we first talked about it early in the week, it wasn't, this is the situation we want to run it in, right? Like, there's a variety of things that could come up in a game. We liked the look based on the tape that we had seen, and we haven't really done anything like that with our kickoff team. But yeah, I mean, it was something that we started kind of talking about in the fourth quarter, and just different ways it could end, whether we scored touchdowns, scored field goals. How's the look been throughout the week or throughout the game? And then when it was go time, we decided to do it.
When you have a game with 0 punts, do you just tell Blake Gillikin to just stay warm, or what do you kind of tell your punter in those situations?
I mean, I was kind of aware that we hadn't punted, but it's kind of like the no-hitter thing, like, don't bring it up. Yeah, I mean, it's an important job, obviously, to punt. It's an important job to hold. I've experienced that a couple of times. I mean, you just always got to be ready. Like, those guys kicked so many footballs into the net because it wasn't like we never got to third down, right? And we were ready to punt, but just didn't come up.
How do you think he's kind of assimilated into the team knowing he came midway through the season?
I think Blake's done a decent job. It's always a new operation when you're dealing with a new snapper as a punter, and then be in the middle of the battery on the field goal stuff with, the snap, hold, and kick part. I mean, that it's similar, but it's not the same with everybody. The ball, how it comes back, what the miss potentially might be, how Prater likes it, so that part of it took a couple of weeks to get to where, we felt really good about it. And then the punt stuff, I mean, he's obviously punted well.
When you look at Matt, take out like what he wants to do, how much does he have left? How many years do you think he can still kick at this level from what you've seen from him and kind of your years of knowledge?
I mean, every year is different. I would just say I don't see it slowing down next year.
We've talked a few times about how the rules have impacted the return game, both on punts and kickoffs, that kind of thing. A guy like Devin Hester is up for the Hall of Fame. Obviously, he was a game changer. Do you see a scenario where somebody like that could still come along, or is that time come and pass?
I think Devin Hester's one of one. And, with those guys, you look at all the Hall of Fame finalists, and I hope they all get in. They're all really good players. I don't know that anybody that's nominated this year changed the game like Devin did. From a punt return perspective, like 14 touchdowns or something, I mean, it's just absurd, and I'm sure there was a couple called back, but he changed the way that punters were being coached. He changed the way punt teams were being coached. The directional punter came into the league, and there were guys who were directionally punting, but it's like, dude, punt this out of bounds. And you know, as a teams coach, you'd hear the head coaches I was working for or around the league say, I don't care if it goes 30 yards, just punt it out of bounds. And it's the same thing, the impact of field position on the kickoff return stuff. Like, you had guys pop kicking and stuff, and, the ball may be at the 35-yard line, which is not what the goal is, but against him, coaches were saying at least he didn't score. I don't think there's anybody that's been like him. I don't know that there'll be another one like him. When I evaluated him coming out, it used to be before everything was digitized. So I'd come back with this stack of like 30 beta tapes, and I had to record every single one of his returns. And the year before, I did Roscoe Parrish, and we thought he was the best returner in the draft. He was a Miami kid as well. And it was, this kid's the best, but he's not the best one on his team. Because I went ahead and just did it because I pulled all the tape, and I'm definitely doing this guy next year. And he's, he's special. It would be a shame, I think, to take if somebody like that comes along again, and the kickoff rule changes dramatically, that would be a shame.
You were with him in Chicago, right?
I was not.
You were not.
Nope. Evaluated him coming out, played against him a few times. It's just a different week when he's the guy sitting back there.
Can you expand a little bit more on how he changed how coaches coach and punters punt?
Well, you see the plus 50 stuff that guys do now, right? Like, there's not a single punter in the league that doesn't hit the rugby-style punt. That only happened in the plus 50. Darren Bennett's the one who brought in the league. And then Mike Cyphers, who was on the team with Darren Bennett, he kind of was the next guy, and Leckler was in the division, so he kind of developed, and then all of a sudden it exploded. And it was probably 2011, and those punts don't go as far, which is why guys don't do them all the time. Now, some of these guys, like the guy we're playing this week, he can punt the heck out of it using that style, but it was basically hit that ball, so at least your coverage team is close to where he may fair catch the ball. Because most people who are just watching football are watching the ball get to his hands, and they're saying, why would you kick it to him? They're not trying to kick it to him. Like, Tiger Woods has stood on the tee box in his prime and missed the fairway. Like, it happens. And it still happens now, right? I mean, guys miss-hit the ball or go somewhere else. The difference was that particular player's skill set made you pay.
As a longtime coordinator yourself, just any observations or thoughts on Drew and Nick and what you've seen from them in their first year in those positions?
Evaluating the offense and defensive coordinator at the end of the season. Probably going to stay away from that. They've been good staff guys. We communicate well. That's kind of my interaction. The day-to-day stuff, I'm not in their meetings or the game plan meetings. They're not in mine. We all have stuff to do, but just on a day-to-day basis, game day, those types of things, it's been good interaction. Everything's been positive, and the communication's been really open between the three of us and the head coach.
Jeff, when you're kicking off into the end zone, and you see it every day, every weekend, all the time, kickers kicking out of the end zone, offense gets the ball to 25. Is there a strategy involved in maybe not kicking it into the end zone and forcing them to return the ball and pinning them back a little bit?
Yeah, at times there is. And there's teams we've played, we've tried to keep the ball in play. We didn't do that much at all last year. And, between the kicks that people were returning against us because they were landing in play, like maybe Matt got underneath or whatever, I think we finished in the top 5, like, start point, right? So, and some of the stuff had to do with penalties because the frequency of returns has gone significantly down in recent years. So when you do see a ball, right, the returner's like, heck yeah, we finally got one. We got action. The guys who are blocking for them, it's new for them. Like, it's a full speed rep. You can't simulate that stuff in practice and training camp in the off season. So as a coach, like, we had 3 this past week, and 2 we got outside the 25. 1 was just inside, nothing inside the 20. But, like, you're really hoping, first of all, there's no penalties because it's just different at a full speed rep. Yeah, there's merit to that, and the difference between this year and previous years is the return team couldn't do anything about it. I used to say, when you're talking about returners, like, a punt returner has complete control over whether or not he's going to return this or not, right? Like, people are like, hey, this guy's a really good returner. He's our starting wideout. What should we do? He's in total control. He can fair catch it all the time. Kick return, the ball was in play. You had to return that. You didn't have control. You do now as a return team because you can fair catch it without sacrificing field position. So there's a little bit of a cat and mouse deal, but, I talked about it a couple weeks ago, and it happened. Houston had a kickoff return touchdown. You've seen some other return touchdowns coming late in the year, and it's because of the weather. It's because of the personnel. When you have a dominant returner going against guys that haven't tackled live kickoffs in a while, as a return team, sometimes you want to be aggressive. It just depends on who you're playing, what you think your matchups are.
Back to Hester for a second. Was he so good that it almost, I never want to say it doesn't matter, but it almost didn't matter who, the blocking or anything, that he was still able to make plays, whatever was happening with the rest of his, return team?
One of his kickoff return touchdowns was the hands team blocking for him. And you go back and look at the personnel they used on punt return, and I've been a part of it before when we've, had a good year returning punts. Like, Tillman's out there blocking for him at corner. Like, those guys are like, I want to be on the field. I want to be part of the reason why we score. His skill set is elite and one of a kind. The guys blocking for him certainly get a lot of credit, for not screwing the play up, and a lot of them probably had blocks to spring that guy. But it's a culture changer when you have a guy that is having success like he always had, because guys embrace that stuff and it gets contagious.